You're listening to Life Repair Recovery Talk Radio with Rick Thompson, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hello, welcome to Life Repair Recovery Talk Radio. I am your host, Rick Thompson. This show is about sobriety and recovery. Each week, we discuss a different topic relating to addiction with the aim that you can gain some insight, guidance, and hope from our discussions. We focus the show in 3 different segments. 1, the viewpoint of the families dealing with the family members suffering from alcoholism and addiction so they may assist them in obtaining treatment. 2, the psychological trauma and emotional damage alcoholics and addicts and their families experience. 3, the role of the insurance companies and associate providers and their part in the recovery process.
Good evening. Welcome to the show. I'm Rick Thompson. Tonight we have a special guest in the studio, and I feel very fortunate to have her here because she is as serious as lung cancer about recovery. Candy F. Hi, Candy.
Hi, how are you, Rick?
I'm good. To start this off, can you give me your opinion and thoughts on the opioid epidemic we have going on in America?
Well, it's the worst epidemic in the history of the United States. And it's really procured by big pharmaceutical companies. And they spend billions of dollars a year with lobbyists to pass things. So I don't think we're ever going to stop that. We're not going to start the big pharmaceutical companies. What we have to do is educate communities and educate families to how this all started, and it started with a non-triplicate synthetic opiate called Vicodin.
Okay.
And
what does non-triplicate mean?
Well, if you have a controlled substance which has a larger percentage than 5%, certainly, I think it's maybe 15%, of a Class A narcotic,
okay,
which opiate is. But Vicodin had so little opiate in it, and it had 325 milligrams of acetaminophen, which is not a Class A narcotic. It's over-the-counter pain medication. And so because that so overrode this, the little tiny bit of opiates, you didn't have to go and get a triplicate, which is a 3-form prescription. One of it the doctor keeps, one of it they give to you, and one of it goes to the pharmacist. So it was to try to be able to stop addiction to, pain medication. And
right.
So how they came around that is a company in Europe invented Vicodin, and away we went. And
right.
You could call it in. You could get a huge tolerance to it in a very short amount of time. Might start out taking 1 every 4 hours, and within a month you're taking 4 every 1 hour. I've done interventions on people that took as many as 65 a day.
65 pills a day, and not overdose.
No.
That's amazing that they could have that kind of tolerance to that drug.
Well, if the opiate isn't going to get them, it's the acetaminophen that's going to damage their liver so much.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. But probably shot their numbers through the roof, I would think.
So that's where it all started. And, these kids could go to grandma's house and she had an ache, or, go to the dentist and have their wisdom teeth pulled. And all of a sudden it was on every corner. At one point, I can't exactly remember what the statistics were, but it was 100,000 pills a day were prescribed in the San Fernando Valley.
Alone.
So, although we got a big valley here, you
Yes.
got to think about, then it went from that to inventing oxycodone,
Right.
which was 20 times stronger than Vicodin, which, by the way, is a triplicate, but not impossible to get, particularly if you kind of go down past San Diego. That is now the biggest pill factory in the world. Is
You go
Tijuana.
right. Okay, it's Tijuana, because you can just walk in off the street without a prescription and get whatever you want, pretty much, right?
Yes, they have virtual doctors that come up off the screen and ask you in your information and then hand you these pills. And a lot of times they're in baggies. So,
Oh, that's never good.
yeah, well, it wouldn't be good for me.
Right.
But, so then it just was off and running. And because like oxycodone and Oxycontin can go for as much as $30 a pill, even more than that. And you're taking 4 pills a day. You've got yourself quite a habit.
Yeah,
so
it's ugly.
in comes this incredibly cheap drug called heroin.
Yeah, which is like $10 a day or something.
Well, you can get a $5 bag. I mean, you have a tolerance to that too. And it's at one time we were getting so much of it from Afghanistan because it was pure.
Right.
And, there was a guy over there that was raising a lot of poppies. So,
Yes.
So it just became such an epidemic level. And it wasn't the ghetto kids. It wasn't the kids that are latchkey kids. It was the kids usually from high-end families,
Right.
because they had access to it. I did an intervention about 3 years ago on a woman in Bel Air who, after we got through with this whole process, and of course she wasn't going to go and didn't going to go, and these are all prescription medications, and I happened to go to the restroom, and as I went by, I saw her housekeeper, and I said, "Do you know anything about the pills that this woman takes?" And she goes, "Oh, there's a big, huge trash bag in the coat closet." And I went in there, took out this rather large, I'd say a quarter of a full of a huge black trash bag, and it was all prescription bottles. None of them had her name on it, and she went to open houses and went through people's medicine cabinets.
Wow.
When acting like she was buying a house. They'll go to any lengths. I mean, it's pretty stunning.
Wow. I mean, that wouldn't. Well, of course, that would never enter my mind because I was never a pill person.
Me neither, but I thought,
Yeah, that's pretty ingenious.
except, me and my way of thinking, I'm going, oh my God, this guy came home and, he has high blood pressure. And,
Right.
He ain't got nothing left.
Right,
I mean,
he's done.
it wasn't like she picked through him. She just took it all
Oh, she took everything,
and sorted through it. But I just thought,
Wow.
we have a saying called any lengths, and I think that
Yep.
kind of hit it for me. In my practice as an interventionist, I yearn for a good old alcoholic.
Right.
They, these kids are 20, 21 years old, and they're getting sober, and, I mean, they probably had 4 drinks in their life,
Right.
and they're done.
They're done compared to us.
It's an awful quick bottom compared to what we had to go through to get where we are today. So
That's true.
and then this whole heroin thing keeps escalating. I'm going out to speak in a small county in West Virginia this coming weekend, and they had 27 overdoses in 4 hours.
Yeah, Cincinnati had a thing about. I don't know if you remember that. They had 45 ODs because there's a new dope out there that
It's been cut with fentanyl.
fentanyl, right?
And the fentanyl is rolling in. It's very cheap to produce, and a lot of it's coming from China. And it, they're able to mask it to the point where it doesn't smell like opiates. So all these dogs
The
sniff
dogs
it.
don't. Right, they pass right by it.
Right?
That's a whole new level of evil right there.
Well, because even though they cut it, the people that are cutting it are not trying it. And fentanyl was always used as a terminal. It was like
For
the
cancer.
Yes.
That was the final drug you took when you were leaving the planet.
Yep.
Okay.
And we've lost Prince. We've lost an awful lot of people because they just
Right.
didn't know the power of it. And it has a long half-life. Like for most opiates, kind of have a short half-life. They
Right.
don't stick around for a long time. This, on the other hand, does. And I think 8 out of the 27 died. And
Jesus.
I'm going to do a fundraiser for a wonderful organization that has free treatment.
In West Virginia. West Virginia. I've been through there. I worked a lot of concerts there when I was a kid. Back then it was a very depressed state.
It still is.
It's just
Huge unemployment, very uneducated.
basically coal miners, and that's really all that's going on down there.
Yep, and lumber.
And lumber, right? Wow, that's unbelievable.
So as we stand right now, we finally have, drug czar that's in recovery, and he can talk about it. There's organizations now that have sprung up that want to educate, but that doesn't mean that stops that person from picking up their first pill.
Of course.
There was a statistic that 2,200 kids between the ages of 12 and 17 a year, between the ages of 12 and 17 years old, take their first opiate pill, non-prescribed, in the United States a day.
Jesus. So they're going into mommy's cabinet, and that's how they're getting it? Or
They're going into anybody's cabinet. I just saw on the news last night where a pharmacy has been robbed 8 times. And I went, yoo-hoo, maybe you shouldn't keep those pills there.
Or get a better safe.
And so what the last time it happened is they put GPS trackers in the pill bottles.
Interesting. That's smart.
Got them.
Well, you would think with the NSA, with the technology they have to spy on all of us, that they would be able to hunt down the dope as it's running around.
Well, exactly. And, I don't know what kind of insurance this guy had, but, they came through there and they just ransacked the place. They didn't know exactly where the opiates were kept, so.
They just took everything.
You bet. Just put it into trash, cans and walked out the door. I think the whole thing took less than 11 minutes.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
These people aren't kidding anymore.
No, they're not. I remember a few months ago, I met these 3 girls at Balboa Park, and there they have like a Sunday meeting there where they cook breakfast for everybody. And there were these girls that were like really young, and I said, "Well, how long have you kids been sober?" And they said like 60 days. And I said, "What was your drug of choice?" And they all 3 said heroin at the exact same time. And you look at these 3 girls, you would never ever think ever. And they were all from affluent families. One was from Oregon, the other one's from New Jersey, the other one was from Maryland. So I asked them to come on because I wanted to hear their stories. And their stories were about the same. Like one car wreck.
Got hurt and started it.
Right. Get the car wreck, and so then she gets strung out. They don't detox her. Next thing you know, she's shooting heroin. Another girl was going out with a guy that owned a pot store, which is not a smart move in the first place, but she couldn't smoke dope because she got anxiety attacks, so he gave her pot oil, and there is no pot oil. There's hash oil.
There's THC oil, yeah.
Yeah, well, that wasn't what she was doing. He was giving her heroin. And then the other one, same thing, car wreck. And you look at these 3 girls and you go, my God, never would you think that these 3 kids who are educated, these are educated young women, and they're stone cold junkies, and they would sit there and start reiterating some of their travels of what they had to go through and experiences to obtain the dope. And I just sat here and my mouth fell open because I just I don't know. Then I watched the Frontline piece that they had on Columbus, and then they had one on 60 Minutes on Columbus, and Fusion had one on Connecticut, which was really. Did you see that one?
Yeah, I have. My husband and I happen to spend a lot of time in Connecticut, and
right.
We have wonderful friends there. And they don't understand how that happened. They live out in the country,
right.
kind of near Yukon, and it's like they're going, we don't see a problem here. And I went, well, of course you don't. You live in a 2-lane highway
right.
down to this beautiful estate, but you're not out in the mix, know.
Right.
It's
and it's being piped in from New York City. It's whoever's bringing it in. It doesn't really matter.
And New York's heroin and L.A.'s heroin are very different. It hasn't been whacked like it by the time it gets to us. And
right.
Ours is Mexican.
Right, of course, because we're so close to Mexico. And so the Afghani heroin or whatever is going to New York City, which is a stronger dope.
Oh, I'd guess so.
So how many deaths do you think are on an average in America from opioid overdoses? Well,
it's at one point it was the number 1 killer. It was in adolescence, certainly. It's the number 1. It far surpassed car wrecks and anything that we used to think. I don't want to say any statistics, but I certainly know it's the number 1 killer of young people. And now here we come with all these baby boomers,
Yeah.
Here are these, including myself, but, here we come with everybody got high and smoked pot and, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and everything was cooking. And then a few people said, look, I've had enough, I'm going to go to college, or I'm graduating from college, I'm going to get a job, I'm going to grow up, I'm going to get married and have kids.
Right.
And it wasn't a part of their lives. And now all of a sudden, there wasn't a big surge in heroin back in the late 60s, early 70s, although an awfully lot of people died
right.
consecutively with it.
Well, the dope then was coming over from Vietnam. A lot of it was, right?
And it was
it
equally
was pure,
as strong.
Right,
equally
pure,
as strong.
basically.
And so, then you hit, let's say, 55, 58 years old, and you're kind of cracky, and your teeth hurt and your feet, and somebody hands you a prescription, and it's such an automatic high for somebody who is familiar with being high, let alone with the weed.
Right.
It was 3% THC. It's now anywhere between 17 and 22.
Oh, right, because they genetically have altered the plants to enhance the THC potency. Yeah.
So we're in a situation where you can't get mad at me. And then I'm in pain. And then what no one ever explained to anybody who takes this medication is the rebound pain is 10 times worse than the original pain. Your body craves this drug so much it creates the same pain, but you're in more pain than you were when you started taking it.
Because it's enhanced.
Yes. And your dopamine levels are low and serotonin, and so you feel pain so much more intensely. So you go, look, I'm not, I have to take these pills. I'm in chronic pain. And that's when the whole chronic pain thing starts happening. Right. And you're off and running.
And the doctors don't even give them any pre-warnings, nothing? I mean, that this could come to fruition?
There's a wonderful man named Mel Pohl, and he has a place in Las Vegas Recovery Center that specializes in nothing but chronic pain. He was a chronic pain doctor. Mm-hmm. And he gets it. I mean, he's the best as far as I'm concerned. He's the best of the best because he understands he has to live through this rebound pain during detox that's like 10 times worse than any, the old shaking off of a junkie.
Right.
I mean, it's intense because it's so psychological.
So how do they get them through that? How, to walk them through that episode?
Well,
ibuprofen or what do you do? Something like that.
Start teaching them biofeedback and meditation.
Okay.
And to hone in on the actual pain.
Right. As
far as what else is it depleting in your life? You're so concentrated on it. Mm-hmm. And codependence of pain management. I mean, the family members are, oh my God, they're in pain. What do you mean? I can't, so it's, and it's the HIPAA law. You go to a doctor and say, my toe hurts. Well, we don't find anything wrong with your toe. I'm really sorry. Then you get an MRI and CAT scan and x-rays, and we see nothing wrong. They still, by law, have to believe you. That there's something wrong with
So
your
you
toe.
can go in and feign a nerve, some kind of nerve issue, which they can't really see on the MRI, right? Can they see that?
Well, I think they can see everything at this day and age, but I still think, but if you're calling 4 times a week, you're going to give them what they want,
Yeah, because you don't want to hear it anymore.
Really the best informed and trained doctors are ER doctors because
they are good.
89% of them are drug seeking that walk in there.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Because I was in there because I've got an issue with my neck with a little bit of arthritis, and I went in there, and while I was there was 2 people working this doctor. He was a young guy. He was completely hip to both of them. He just said if you don't like what's going on here, you just should leave.
Yeah. Just
throw them right out because he knew it was a scam.
Well, yeah, they all start with Demerol and work down. So as you're aware by doing what you're doing, it's a full-time job being a drug addict. And it's a real full, you see all these doctors that are having their licenses taken away and they killed these 8 people because now what's happening because of the dispensing laws, these people are, let's say, buying 2,000 Vicodin. And so you go in and you pay your $495, probably once a week. And out of that money now, that doesn't go through any insurance system, it's all cash pay, and you get your 72 pills, and they're handed to you. So you don't have to go to a pharmacist because now they're able to track prescriptions by people.
Right.
It's all starting to be connected. So it's like they just go above it, So if you want to, there's a lot of Dr. Feelgoods.
Now, besides the opioid thing, I have never watched Intervention until the other day. One, because I knew I was going to be uncomfortable. That's why. But I watched it, and there was this girl, I can't remember her name, but she was gorgeous, and she was doing she was a meth head, and she was doing sex on webcams. And I swear to God, I walked away. I had to pause it and walk away 3 times because tears were just coming out of my face. Because
it's a tragic story.
My God, I mean, how do you process this level of pain and nightmare while you were doing the show? That was the first thing that went through my mind. Because I don't know you really well, but I know enough about you that you are a very good person. And, I mean, we all feel. And when you're, that's in your face all the time, you're subjected to that kind of pain.
Well, how could you, if you were properly trained, I've been doing this 28 years. I've been sober 30. I've been doing this a really long time, and I started with the Musicians Assistance Program. Mm-hmm. And the man who ran it, Buddy Arnold, would go, get in the car and go get this guy and get him in here. We're going to take him over to Cry Help or wherever. Right. And I'd go, I'm not going in there by myself. I don't know these people. And he'd go, well, they don't want to know you. You're not making friends with these people. Are you crazy?
You're saving their life.
He said, just go and pick him up. And
right.
He goes, and then tell the wife where he is later. And, I mean, it was kind of that flippant. But in that process of doing that, I got trained by Vern Johnson, who was the creator of the process of intervention. I've just been a really lucky woman. And I have to tell you something. You think you might have one shot at helping somebody save their life, it's not going to scare you as much as not doing it.
That's true. I've been there, done that. You're absolutely right.
So the only thing I can tell you in a very kind of crass way is I don't love these people. If this was my aunt or my brother or, I wouldn't be able to function. I would be so enmeshed and involved in this whole process. But, I care deeply about these people. The family certainly has gotten as sick, sure. If not in some sense sicker. And there's some families that, after I do a 4 or 5 hour pre-intervention, I go, damn, I know why they use these people. Right, these people are horrible.
Yeah, right.
But the thing about it is that everybody has to have a chance. And that's why the show's been so wonderful to me, is because 98% of everybody that we have intervened on, we've done I think 256 interventions, and we have a 74% success rate.
That's amazing.
Now, that success rate is amazing. Out of that, I imagine we have about a 29% first-time arounders. In the 70s is certainly, they've relapsed and everything. But I couldn't figure it out. I thought, was it because they don't pay for treatment, the treatment scholarship? Or is it because it's so... And what it is, and I'm diehard sure of this, is that they get to see themselves in that condition. Because after they get out of treatment for 90 days, the show doesn't show until after usually they're out of treatment between 85 and 90 days. And they get to see this whole family who is just puddled. They get to see what they looked like and how they acted, which is part of the denial system of being an addict, is we really don't know who we are. And so I think all they have to do is take a look and go,
holy shit.
God.
Yeah, right.
What's my dad doing giving me his morphine pills? I mean, there's been every...
moments of clarity.
And I think that, one of the sad situations with the story last week on intervention with this girl is because she made so much money. She was desperate, there's no doubt about that, but she easily made $1,000 a day
doing the webcam stuff.
And I don't know what desperation looks like to her, even though her son's begging her and all that. It's
Yeah, that's just, I couldn't even wrap my head around that.
Well, and
the kid knows his mother's doing sex games.
Oh, yeah.
Mother.
Everybody did. Everybody did.
Yeah.
And, the situation was, people used to say, well, you have to hit a bottom. And I always go, you haven't met Candy Finnigan. Right. I'll get a bottom for you so fast you won't know what hit. Right. A bottom to me in 2016 is, somebody's burying you.
Yep.
Where
else can you possibly go after you've gone that low and you don't get it?
And I'll tell you something, the social implications of this particular girl was such where, I know it's kind of unkind for me to say, but she never had any structure as a child, everybody knew her. It was funny because her father lived in Mexico, and I thought, well, that's so far away, and she said, well, my kids are felons; they can't come visit. So, what?
Oh, that's warm.
Well, but I'm just saying,
yeah, right.
How did you get away from this? And he loved her, but there wasn't. Even though this was a last result, and went on and on and on, and we continued to try to help her no matter what, there comes in a time where you can't give up on people, but you can't make anybody do anything.
Absolutely not. They're not ready till they're ready.
And some people aren't going to be ready.
Yeah.
Some are sicker than others.
That's true.
And she had everything she needed. All the attention, all the money.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that was just.
It was tragic. It's one of the most tragic ones.
What happened to that girl? Is she gone? She's dead?
No, she's not dead. She's still doing what she's doing, I'm sure.
My God. And did she see herself on TV?
I haven't spoken with her, but I would imagine that she wouldn't see what we saw.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's true. The disease.
And she got, I'm sure she got really angry at the production company and all of that because we made her look bad. We exaggerated all of this because, the perception of who you are and what you do to others is so, it's just there isn't any way that she could ever see what we saw.
No, because the disease is operating her existence. So, it's telling her everything's okay when she's dying.
And, her son was just a spectacular kid and really smart and had great expectations for himself in college and all this kind of stuff. And, I know she had to think, he doesn't need me. He's doing fine. Look how good. It wasn't... You can step back from all of that emotional stuff, The other epidemic part of this pill is everybody is very forlorn as far as the addiction to benzos, but particularly Xanax.
Really?
Heroin addicts take Xanax to go to sleep, and I always say, haven't you slept enough?
Yeah, that doesn't even make sense. You would think if you would nod out and go to sleep on heroin.
Well, you're not really sleeping.
Oh, well, I don't know anything about heroin.
Well, I personally don't either, but I've seen enough junkies in my life now that I go, are you resting with your eyes shut? Yep, okay, because they sure know what you said.
Right.
So, and benzodiazepines is by far the very worst detox in the world. It can go on for months.
Months. To get it out of your bloodstream?
To get it out of your system, it mastitizes itself.
Oh, God.
And it's like the old joke we used to say about, I'm going to lose 20 pounds and have a really good acid trip. But, this is much more severe.
What was, in your opinion, the worst case scenario that you've experienced on the show?
Oh, I don't think there's been one show that was my favorite. I don't think there's been one scenario that was worse. I'm always so emotionally invested, I think, because with women who have children and how these kids, how the kids suffer.
Right.
And they don't really realize it. I think one of the ones that, really touched me the most is this man had been a lightweight world champion boxer. And it was, he was living on the streets in New Haven, Connecticut, and New Haven, Connecticut, and he hadn't seen his twin boys, and they had looked everywhere for him for years and years, and the postman wrote the show and asked to help him.
Really?
Because he saw him in front of, a convenience store every day. Everybody called him Champ. Everybody gave him money. He'd had a stroke, but he had not, gone to a hospital. And when those boys saw their father, and he actually recognized them because he hadn't seen them since they were 3 or 4 years old. It was
God.
The guttural sound out of this man was beyond anything I'd ever heard, the pain. Right. And there was another boy sitting there who looked just like the twins did, and that was also his son. And he had never paid attention enough to know he had this other son, and they had lived 3 miles apart, these boys had. So finally, this child had, brothers, and it changed his whole life. It was both the boys were graduates of college. And,
really?
And it was like I could barely breathe. It was a long shoot because we had to get him at least coherent enough and get him bathed, and so, and he was so frightened. He thought we were going to mock him, but he was a phenomenal boxer, and had been ripped off by everybody, had a big life, big Cadillac and all that. It was so moving to me because he had no idea how he was going to live. He just didn't have any. If he went to a bed every single night and went to sleep, he had been living like this for so long.
This wasn't the guy that Mark Wahlberg did that movie on, was it? Because there was another guy that was in an HBO documentary that was done in Massachusetts, Lowell, getting high on Lowell Street or something like that. And that was just unreal.
Well,
we
don't have enough time to get into boxers and their lives.
Right.
But there are so many of these. This man had been called Rocky since he was 5. His father groomed him to be a fighter.
Right.
And one of the things I made the treatment center promise me is that they would call him Richard, and he didn't answer to it. Nobody ever called him that.
That was his name.
That was his name, and it was a tremendous struggle because of his physical condition was so deteriorated.
How old was he?
I think maybe he was in 52, and he had the body of an 80-year-old.
Oh, gosh.
He'd had 2 strokes, severe strokes.
Severe strokes.
Yeah, but it was like one of those things where it wasn't that I thought that if it wasn't for us that he would have died, because he was inches away from that anyway. Mm-hmm. But it was to allow these boys to know that he was not running away from them, that he didn't get back in touch with them or ever send them a Christmas card, because of his incredible condition.
Right.
And it wasn't that I ever gave them back their father, but I gave him 3 sons.
Right. Okay. Well, that's a start. Anything can happen from there. How have the experiences of the show overall changed the way that you view the various diseases and treatment plans that are in place?
Well, I never set out to do this, I'll tell you. I'm the person that I always laughingly said had never worn foundation in my life.
Right.
I just wasn't that person. And right. I just stood still long enough, and this opportunity came to me, and I didn't think it would ever work. And the man who created the show's name is Sam Metler, and he had a vision, and he doesn't even know where it came from. It was just,
he just got him decided to do it one day, and
well, he pitched it, and kind of in a different way, and they went, well, what if we did it this way? And then, it's quite a thing to try to figure out how are we going to get these clients,
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
And we're still doing this since 2005. So you're looking at 11 years, and they still don't know. If they find out they're on the show, intervention, if somebody in their family tells them or something, we're out of there within 6 hours. This is the real deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, trying to climb up a greased pole, seriously.
But, it's funny that the alcoholic that I am, I was so sneaky. I'm a woman alcoholic. I, snuck stuff, waited till the kids went to bed, waited till my husband went in town, whatever it was. But, addicts think to themselves, well, I don't ever want anybody to have to live like I'm living. So, desperate and so on the edge and all that. And I thought, and you're going to have these people run around with a camera following you? And, and the way that it is presented so beautifully, it doesn't look like the finished product. So it's very believable.
It's an incredible show, that's for sure.
Oh, it's what a joy it's been for me.
We'll be right back in a minute.
I would like to take a moment and talk to you about the Villa Treatment Center. Their integrated substance abuse and dual diagnoses program rests on foundational principles of personal responsibility, structure, and service. Whether you are at the beginning of your recovery journey or farther along the road, the Villa Treatment Center offers an individual plan to suit all of your recovery needs. Detoxification by doctors specializing in addiction medicine, residential treatment, transitional living, day treatment, and full care outpatient services are available. Please call 818-505-6900 for further information. That's 818-505-6900 and begin your recovery now. The website for Life Repair Recovery Talk Radio is www.latalkradio.com. Life Repair Recovery Talk Radio is on Channel 1. We are broadcasting live from our studios every Sunday at 6 p.m. West Coast time. All of our shows are archived on the www.latalkradio.com site and can be accessed 24/7. Our call number is 323-203-0815. That's 323-203-0815. And now back to our show.
The brand new website for Life Repair Recovery Talk Radio is www.liferepairrtr.com. That's www.liferepairrtr.com. We are back in the studio with Candy. Besides the opioids, have you had interventions with cocaine or anything, and straight alcoholism?
Oh, of course. I've been doing this for decades now. There was spurts. You got the freebase, you got the cocaine, then you just started getting tar. An awful lot of people smoke tar instead of shooting heroin. And
tar is that's black heroin or something.
The way they sell it is they tell you it's opium, but it's kind of the bottom of the barrel. It's it's the low end on heroin because the high lasts such a small amount of time. You're just chasing the dragon like nothing.
Right.
I've done mental illness. I've done a family trying to get their mother to go into continuing care. I've done a lot of eating disorders.
Like food addiction. There's a show on My 600-Pound Life. Have you ever watched that?
I certainly know about it.
Wow. I watched a couple of those, and I was blown away that anyone could let themselves get that big to where they could not bathe themselves.
They can't function.
It's just sad.
Eating disorders are very difficult intervention. It's a whole nother, because I don't ever have to have another drink as long as I live, but these people do have to eat.
Yes.
And I was trained by Patrick Carnes at the Meadows for sex addiction, and I can certainly spot somebody who is cross-addicted, but I don't specialize in anything that it's a very touch-and-go situation, family-wise with the sex, addict. And so I would send somebody that had this as part of their diagnosis to someplace who would be able to treat it.
The sex addiction, how does that usually start in your experience when you're dealing with these people, their backgrounds on this?
Well, I'd say most of it has to do probably with trauma.
Okay.
or being shamed, or being possibly molested by a priest, all that secret stuff,
Right.
and that you really did kind of enjoy it, and you're not. The same thing with, molestation and incest. I mean, it starts, there was at one time a survey that said if you were 80 pounds overweight, that there was a 60 to 70% chance that you had been molested as a child, because you create this armor to keep people away from you.
Okay.
And but I think we've come so far with all of that. And there's wonderful places that treat all of this. It's like, changing deck chairs on the Titanic. I mean, what's going to come next?
Right, sure.
I think the only one that I was very skeptical of, and it was the first show on intervention, was this woman who had a shopping addiction. There was a lot more going on than that, but she would walk into a store and have to buy everything that was pink, and she was an actress, and it was, I just said, I actually said to the production company, I'm not the right person for this. This is, like mental illness.
Right.
And I'm not comfortable with trying to, no family. It was two of her friends. And, they tried to get the credit card person, to come in, because there were like, $35,000 worth of charges. And then she'd take back $32,000 of it, it's that constant. I think one of the most interesting ones I did was somebody who was incredibly addicted, and no one knew that there was a substance part of it, who did, QVC. She had 500 or 600 boxes not opened in her garage.
Somebody else mentioned that to me last night at a meeting.
But we also found out that she was taking her son's Adderall.
Okay. That's like speed, right?
It's amphetamine salts.
Wow. So she would take the Adderall and she'd go nuts on QVC.
And, she would be alone, and she'd go, "Hi, Becky, it's, Julie," and, in Baton Rouge, good to talk to you. I'll take 8 of those, that kind of thing.
Ooh.
The family had a long, long recovery of trying to return all this stuff.
600 boxes that she never even opened. And did she have any concept of what was even in those boxes, really?
Oh, no. I think she thought she was buying birthday presents and Christmas presents and that kind of stuff, but it was more to get on air. The more she ordered, the more they put her on air.
Right. That's true. So it was, it was about the attention factor.
Yeah, it was an obsessive-compulsive behavior.
Let's say so. Oh, man. That's...
But it was, I didn't kind of expect it,
Yeah.
Thought,
600 boxes of stuff. That's just, that's outrageous.
Well, she knew her UPS guy really well.
I bet you did. Yeah.
By first name.
Well, I would think so. What other avenues of addiction have you encountered on your show?
Well, I think everything's been touched. One of the most popular shows was huffing, which is a girl.
Were you talking about glue?
No, I'm talking about computer cleaner. That is the compressed air
that you blow out the keys with. They're huffing that. That's nuts.
And it has a really the propellant in it is nitrous, and so you have to get rid of kind of all of the air, because it's under such a high compression that it freezes your lungs. And but it's not so hard to go into one of these office supply places and say, I'll take a couple cartons of that, giving them for Christmas, and and then go home and start at it. And this girl, I'm telling you, could not put she could not put a sentence together. It was so frightening. And she just graduated from UCLA as a therapist. She has a psychology degree.
Today,
well, it was like a year ago she graduated. And she came back from it, and it was stunning. There wasn't anybody that didn't think she had permanent brain damage. A lot of kids died of it. And there was a very, big phase where they'd freeze their lungs and they couldn't breathe.
Right.
They couldn't exhale. So, they would literally, have brain damage.
Yeah, I remember a kid that used to, what was he doing? He was antiperspirant. band. And he died from it. And I went to his funeral. I think I was about 15 years old. Yeah, but I never forgot it.
Yeah, and airplane glue and
yeah, I knew a kid used to do that when I was a kid.
And gasoline and all that stuff.
Yeah, I did that once. And then when you see
once,
and you see the walls of the building going back and forth, that cured me. It said, "This is not good."
Yeah, and we've done on GHB, we've done them on all of these designer drugs, and there isn't anything that we haven't touched. That I think there's been over 200,000 applications for the show.
Really, that's amazing. It's also very sad.
Very grateful it isn't my job. I wouldn't know where to start.
How many shows are you guys doing per season?
I would say between maybe 13 and 16. When the show started, we had half-hour shows, so there were a whole lot of them. It was 22 minutes of let's get it,
Sure.
And then, as the show evolved, it became, so much more other than trying to get somebody in treatment. So it's been an amazing process, and that can't tell you how many people stop and thank me for what I've done, and thank me for they never knew how bad they were, or they never knew. I never thought I'd ever hear somebody say, "I can't tell you what I would have done if my family would have had you come over and you'd have knocked on my door." And I thought, well, I'm not Santa. And they said, "Oh, yes, you are." And I just thought, oh, but a tremendous amount of people got the message that it wasn't hopeless on that show, and for that I'm eternally grateful.
That's just incredible. I I still have got to finish that one episode tonight, and then I've got two more, which I'm forcing myself to watch because I need to see this.
Well, it's a process. I think that you get to see. The shows are. I understand are being shown at Harvard Medical School. Because they can go, this is what meth looks like.
Right.
This is what heroin looks like. This is what pill. So
it's a great educational tool.
It's very difficult to teach.
Well, Candy, thank you for taking time on a Sunday evening to visit with us. I really appreciate you coming by.
Thank you so much for what you do. The more we can spread the message that there's always hope and don't ever give up, and there's a solution to this problem, I'm more than willing to help any way I can.
Thank you. We're at the end of this week's show, but make sure to tune in next week for another hour of Brutally Honest Recovery Talk Radio. Our mission is to provide a safe platform for those who are still suffering from various forms of addiction. We're just people willing to listen and offer suggestions to help those in crises. We leave you now with a brief synopsis from our friend in the afterlife, the great John Flynn.
Disappointment. Disappointment is the caboose on the choo-choo train of expectation. Anything you want from anybody, you give them what you want from them. It's the only way you're going to get it. Life is about giving, not getting. Day at a time.
Thank you, John, and thank you again, Candy, and thank you for listening. We'll see you on the rebound.
You're listening to Life Repair Recovery Talk Radio with Rick Thompson, only on LA Talk Radio.